Greetings, creeps, and welcome to Horror Girl Problems, the podcast / videocast. Thanks for listening, Mom and Nephew Noah. We have director Christopher Smith. His new film, The Banishing, is a classic haunted house tale now streaming on Shudder. It definitely gives me elements of classic 70s British haunted house horror vibes. In other words, I fucking dug it. So without further ado, I give you director Christopher Smith. All right, thanks for coming to hang out and chat today.
No problems. It's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to talk about The Banishing. Christopher Smith, director of the new horror film now streaming on Shudder. This is very much a classic haunted house kind of feel to it, which I really appreciated because it reminded me of old stuff that I grew up on. What were some of your
Yeah,
inspirations?
yeah, very much so. We wanted it to have a kind of an old, almost an old British Hammer feel,
Mm-hmm.
um, from the sort of period to some of the characters. Sean Harris's character Harry is very much a sort of Peter Cushing Van Helsing character. So we just wanted to give it a very old-fashioned feel. It was, it's set in the 1930s, but we wanted it to sort of have an old sensibility, because sometimes you'll see stuff that's shot in the supposedly in the 30s, but it's very modern in the approach, the HD camera, all of that sort of stuff. We sort of jettisoned really to give it a bit of a vintage feel. Yeah.
Absolutely. It definitely felt like 70s British horror to me, which is like so nostalgic because I grew up watching. I wasn't allowed to watch like rated R stuff, so I watched a lot of like 70s and much older films. Like that's what my parents would let me consume as far as horror stuff, and that's what it felt like.
No, I was the same. I remember sort of sneaking downstairs as a kid, and when I was about 12 to watch, The Curse of the Werewolf or something. It was on at about 9 p.m., but still scared me to death. Oliver Reed and they shot those movies often in a similar way to we did, where they just took over a house and a village, and that's kind of what we did. We filmed this on an estate where they gave us pretty much the run of that huge house, so we were very lucky. Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you come about that location?
So the producer was friends, knew someone through a friend who basically owned the estate. So the old house you see at the end in the epilogue, the big sort of house, I won't say much more about it, but the big house, that's the entire estate house. And what we filmed is our vicarage, if you like, is the sort of guest entrance or the servant's entrance on the back of the house. So it was, yeah, we were very lucky. But it's because it's one of those big old-fashioned estates. They take a lot of money to run them, so
Mhm.
I think they're always looking for ways to, fill the coffers, if you like.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. Like this is how we fund running this gigantic place.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Well, it's
I like your
beautiful
Skull
though.
vodka in the background. I can see there.
Ah,
Look at
thank you.
that. You got a little support Skull vodka. I
Now I feel
like
like I
that.
got to do a little cheers and like take a little
Yeah,
shot
no,
with you.
definitely you do.
Well, good morning to you.
Definitely.
So this is based on a true story? Like what elements of this are based on a true
Wow.
story?
I mean, someone said that to me when I first read the script, and I was like, "True? Come on, it's not true.
Right.
It's it's not true." I
I was like,
mean,
how loosely are we using that term?
well, the way I look at it is that somebody, if the true would be the characters are based in reality.
Mhm.
Somebody went to that house and, shall we say, had an episode
Okay.
based upon their personal predicament at that time or whatever. But I'm a strong believer that we can, that certain people that are in a certain place in their life with their own ghosts that they carry around with them, their own kind of demons, can go to a place, a house, and it can trigger something in them. So I think
Mhm.
in that sense it's true. I don't. I'm not a big. I'm not a believer in the supernatural. And I think that kind of plays into the film really in a way. Is that this house is obviously haunted, but I'm slightly more interested, or as interested, in the demons that the characters bring along themselves, and so that's part of the sort of plan for the film really, is that they are bringing their own troubles into that house,
Mhm.
and that house is like the petri dish for what they're carrying.
That was a very cool element to it, actually, kind of the unfolding as we're learning things about these characters, and there's just kind of like this unfolding of these layers coming across, and they're like, okay, yeah, these people have some demons, I can see.
Yeah, definitely. And they're very, it's almost like it would have been a scandal in the 30s for a vicar to marry a woman, and yet he's kind of, they have a dysfunctional relationship.
Hmm.
She's, he judges her, he almost despises her for having a past, and I think that whole, when we talk about the 1930s as being the quintessential kind of cups of tea England, kind of Downton Abbey sort of vibe, in actual fact, there was a lot of prejudice in and around, from husband to wife, homophobia, racism, the rise of fascism. So we wanted to sort of put all of these really complex issues into the writing, really, and sort of show that this was a very, this is a period, we're looking at the same stuff happening now. That's the kind of the big fear for me, and that was what was really driving me at the time. Was, look, this stuff didn't just happen in Germany, it can happen here, it can happen now. And we're just, we're definitely leaning into that when we were making it.
Absolutely. There's all these different kind of volatile elements, and then you mentioned how he kind of despises her, and I feel like he despises her, maybe despises himself, but also maybe despises her for having a past, and then also despises her because he wants her in spite of
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. He's scared of her. There's a number of complex things. And I made a film with Jess before, and she was at one point when we were shooting the scene by the bed, the kind of failed sex scene, if you like. He's like, why don't I? What's the reason I don't want to do anything? And I said, listen, I don't know. You're gonna have to invent something. It's your demons in a way. But it could be that it could be that he's gay. It could be that it could be just that he's scared. So and I think all of the point of the whole thing is that in spite of these things, he's carrying shame,
Hmm.
and both of them, and the tragedy is that even though she's a very, she's kept her daughter, she's suffered from mental illness, she's the biggest problem in her is that she also feels shame, and that society has made her feel ashamed. And it's kind of, and that's what I mean about that period. It's a really interesting, we shouldn't look at that period in rose colored spectacles.
Hmm.
They both have issues, and they both have to get rid of their own issues before they have a chance as a couple. My Siamese cat is just wandering into my. You see if you
Hello.
can. There she is.
Oh,
It's a weird cat. Sorry to say that. There we
no,
go.
cute. What's her name?
Yeah. Maud.
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 Hello, Maud. Pleasure
Maud.
to meet you.
Maud. Yeah.
The
So
Maud cameo.
yeah. There we
But
go.
that's a
Go
very
on.
good point, though, because it's very easy to think, to kind of look back at all of that time period and romanticize it. But then
Mm,
you've got to think, like, holy shit, like, how much shame would each of us be carrying around, or
yeah.
what would be all the myriad of things that we would be shamed for? Like, it was just
No,
a laundry
absolutely.
list.
And it's still there. That's the
Hmm.
thing. It's that, we're still there. The good old days are now, and yet we still have, shame about mental health, and that's
Hmm.
still a taboo. People still don't speak out, and so all of those elements, we wanted to put sort of very grown up kind of elements into it. But obviously, because it's a ghost story, because it's a horror, you still need to, there's still a contract with the audience. You still have to, I've made, 4 or 5 horrors, and you still have to scare people and entertain people. And the big influence for me, I think is evident, it's certainly in Triangle, but also in this film, is The Shining. And are you in the Overlook Hotel, or are you in Jack Nicholson's head? And
Hmm.
not really ever knowing, and and not really ever resolving everything is always the scarier way for me. I hate those scenes where at the end everything's explained to you.
Right.
It's like, I like you to work a bit, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely had that element of like, wait, okay, is it actually haunted, or are we just being haunted within this character's mind? Like we're seeing their
Yeah.
demons just kind of manifesting here, or is it actually haunted? But
but
as
but
well.
also, is it like history repeating itself? That is also what haunting is. It's also seeing the mistakes we're making
Hmm.
that have already been made in that house before. that we're walking in the same footsteps. And I think that's a big part of what hauntings are, because we always say, okay, well, I don't want to go down into the cellar. But then if you were to find out that something's actually happened in the cellar, that wouldn't be the reason I didn't want to go down. But it does add to it. It does kind of, the two sort of coexist, and
Right.
yeah.
Yes, it's very much there's a speech that the vicar gives, or a sermon that the vicar gives, and it's relevant for his time period, but it's also so wildly relevant to present times, and it's kind of like holding a mirror up to like the same. We're repeating so many of the same things.
No, absolutely, and it's almost like a prayer for Europe. It's like, yeah, let's hope we're all going to be okay.
Right.
That's exactly what they did then. And that's with hindsight, it's like, so yeah, I mean, this is all sounding very kind of highfalutin, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise these things so that there's the interesting layers, but still have, the scary monks and the scary woman and all of those other things. But that's what I really love about horror, is that you get to raise these questions. It has always been a genre that lets you kind of explore interesting things subtextually, definitely.
Absolutely. And it's not highfalutin. That stuff is layered in a way where it works. And I promise everyone it is a haunted house movie, but it has these other elements.
We're making it sound like it's just dry intellectual drama. No.
At all.
These are buried away in lots of jumps and scares. Exactly.
They're masterfully tucked in and baked into the mix there. So the overall what you're getting is, it's a fucking haunted house movie for sure.
Yeah, you're basically right.
There's some good jump scares in there too. The monks and the lady, like not just a jump. I think I did like it was an audible like.
No, it's good. Yeah, these scenes were all fun to shoot as well, and it was. I mean, obviously people mostly recognize Jess from Downton Abbey, but I'd worked with her before, and we had real fun doing this, in the sense of Jess can just turn on the terrified, turn on the emotion. And I'm like, how do you just do it? Like, 1 minute she's chatting away, next minute she's ding, and she said, "Well, this is how I really feel. This is my normal self. I'm actually acting and pretending to be happy." I said, "No, you're not. Don't say that. That's not true."
Oh no.
No, she's not really. She just dropped that on me, and I was like, "Really?" No.
I have to say, I am a huge Downton Abbey nerd, and I really I'm such a fan of Jessica, so seeing her in this was great, and kind of in a different role. And she's so expressive. Like you said, she can just kind of turn it on. Like,
brilliant.
She's just got these, like, eyes, and you're just, like, feeling it boring into your soul, and she's just amazing.
She's just she's a lovely girl, a lovely person as well. And so it's one of those, we can just, and because we've worked together in the past, we were able to really go for it. But I didn't have to give her really any notes like that. Mm-hmm. I'll just be like, okay, you've come down, you're looking at yourself, and it's you, and then you action, and that's the look, that's it. So yeah,
and then she just is.
She just does it, yeah.
Nice. Makes your job nice, huh?
No, it does. Yeah, no, it can be easy it's only difficult when it doesn't all work like that.
Right.
And then you've got to really step up. Yeah.
There's
I did criticize her a couple. So I was going to say, I did criticize her a couple of times. I'd be like, "So you're the vicar's wife, but it's another outfit. You're looking very good. Nice yellow jumper, a nice suede jacket. Where did you get your money before you met the vicar?" I don't know if you noticed that, but she had some lovely costumes. Did you notice?
Yeah. That's another fun part about a period piece, is just the looks. You can just do all these beautiful, aesthetically wonderful things with it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's the 30s and 40s is just for that kind of very set look, is a beautiful period, I think.
Yes.
Definitely.
Beautiful fashion, and of course she wears it amazingly.
She completely wears it amazingly. No, exactly.
She could wear like a trash bag, though.
She could. Jess could. The first time I saw her in costume, I got the fear of it. The very first scene we shot was actually her arriving in the car, and she had her hair all set, and I was just like, I got the fear. It was so made up. I was like, really? That's how you're going to look? all the way through. I said, you can't look like that. You just look so, how we got to break you down a bit. And so I spoke to hair and makeup, and I was like, eventually the hair is going to come down from the little neat set that it was. And it did. It did. We got her messed up pretty quickly.
Too put together for a woman being haunted.
Well, that's what I mean. You
Yeah.
can't stay like that the whole way through the
Right.
film. That was the thing. But,
Nice.
definitely.
Are there any cool like anecdotes or any favorite moments that you'd like to share with us from shooting?
Oh, it was a strange shoot in the sense that it's how do it's like what you're always doing, and people that before I made films, you didn't realize this, that nobody has. You talk about Kubrick and The Shining. Nobody has the 70 takes, except maybe, I don't know, David Fincher, but nobody gets that many takes. You're always kind of up against it. And we had fun with Jess, and she's obviously got her daughter, and the young girl Anya, who plays her daughter, you're having to do a scene where, basically, cut a long story short, Anya has kind of walked through the mirror, and we had a bit of a mad scenario where everything she did, the little girl, was so good it would freak Jess out, and Jess would corpse, and we'd all laugh. And so that amazing scene where Jess is literally looking at her daughter walking off into the mirror was actually a really funny scene for us to film, but it looks harrowing. And I always say, when people say about horror movies, they're like, was that scary to shoot? It's like, no, it's not scary to shoot. It's never scary to shoot. It's like my kids came on set and they were like, is it okay to be here, Daddy? And it's like, you're not going to be scared. Unless you've got zombies walking around. Yeah, just so really, yeah, it was just lots of realizing how absurd what we were doing was.
Right.
That was the kind of main thing.
I love that that's one of the most chilling probably scenes in the movie, and then you just said it was one of the funniest ones to
Yeah,
shoot.
no, exactly. I had the same thing with the film that I made, Creep, the very first film. There's a really shocking scene in that, and it's kind of really funny. It's so bonkers when you realize what it is you're shooting, and it's really bonkers. Maybe it's the energy, maybe it's the sort of level of performance that it becomes, in a way, horror and comedy. I mean, that's why when they're put together and it works, it's so joyous, because it's sort of like love and hate. They're very similar. They're in the same world, I think.
I think they set
Emotion.
off, yeah, they do, and I think they kind of set off the same set of like endorphins, like so to speak. Like
I
when
agree.
a really good scare, and it's like, oh shit, and then you're like, okay, I'm safe, and then it's just like this rush, and it's the kind of the same rush that you get when you're like laughing very hard with your friends or something. Like it's kind of a similar feeling.
There's a moment where I think you mentioned it, where there's moments where yes, it was easy working with Jess. There are other elements where you go, oh God, this is terrible. The very first time I looked out the window when Jess is banging on the window because she sees these monks coming towards the maid, the sort of how do we say, the sort of housekeeper, and she's screaming at the window. As soon as I looked at the monks, the way they walked, and it was just, oh no, this is terrible.
Oh, no.
So I was like, this isn't scary. These are weird. These guys can't walk. And it was like, what, they could walk, but and then one scene, I was so paranoid that if they're not odd looking, they're not going to work. And then I sort of given this guy very specific things about how to walk, because you always think if that you can hire somebody who's like you think, oh, I don't need a performer. I could just get an extra to be in the suit. And then you realize the reason you need a performer is because walking is difficult if you're nervous. And this one guy, as he's walking along, he sort of trips over a bush and falls on his ass. And I'm like, so there was a moment where I was scared that I was never going to work again, and these guys weren't going to be scary. But we got there.
That is not a menacing monk. I need more menacing and less
no,
tripping.
exactly. It's just some bloke. He looked like Gandalf. No, exactly.
Yeah, I think people underestimate the amount of performing that does go into something like people who act in like a creature suit or something. But you still have to act as that creature, and there's certain movements.
Do. Yeah. He was a bit, the guy did nothing wrong. He was a bit flat-footed. He was sort of swinging his arms too much. And I was like, just kind of look brilliant. I couldn't really give him a note. Just don't act like you are acting now. But I couldn't give him that note. But yeah, eventually I think we got the producer to put on one of the costumes, and he had to do it. But
Oh
we
my
got
God.
there in the end. And then that was the first day. By day 3, we'd hired actors. So we went from using extras to hiring actors. You can't tell
Okay.
in the movie. I can tell, but I don't think the audience will.
No, the monks were definitely scary. Whoever made it into the final cut, they were menacing
Yeah.
monks.
Good. Good. Okay. Good.
Also,
Good.
that's just such like a visually striking thing. Maybe I also grew up with kind of imagery and watching movies of that, but like that hood and then just that movement, and you can't, everything is kind of obscured and it's just kind of like a tunnel instead of a face. You don't see any kind of features, and that's just
Yeah.
so scary to me.
I think I mean, I'm a real sucker for anything, even semi-religious is scary. I mean, I only went, I didn't go with a particularly religious family. I went to Sunday school a bit as a kid, but I think there's something in our DNA, whether we grew up religious or not, that kind of you understand the importance as a
Hmm.
human being of faith and religion and how important it's been. And it's kind of in your DNA to be a little bit respectful and scared of it. And I think that's why The Exorcist works. That's why these movies about nuns, and it's just freaky a little bit.
It
I think
is.
the
Those are
outfits
always,
are freaky.
yeah.
They're just freaky. Apart from Buddhism, Buddhist outfits are not freaky. They
Oh,
don't
those are
scare me.
not.
I
Yeah.
like them. They're not. They're not. It's just sort of Catholic-y, Christian-y stuff that really scares me.
Yeah. Same. I don't know if it's just deeply ingrained in me or what it is, but that's the stuff that sticks with me. Like
Yeah,
things that I saw when I was a kid that have to do with religious horror, like as an adult, I'm like, "Oh my God, like I can conjure up those like vividly imagery of that kind of stuff and it just never leaves."
no, no. I see a completely innocent nun walking down the street, and you're like, ooh, ooh. It's just like I'm a little bit scared. Don't look, kids, turn away. It's like not quite, but yeah,
It's like that very fine balance of like you could be very sweet or you could be very terrifying, and I'm not sure which you're gonna land
that's
on.
right. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think that's what it is. It's something that's a symbol of something that's supposed to be so good and like
Yeah,
pure, and then like morphing that and flipping it around into where it's completely the opposite of that. That's terrifying.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what I think. It's also it's also like I mean the story, the backstory for the film is very, it's grim, and I think why it touches on now that we've lightened up our intellectual debate of the first half of the conversation, I think why it's spooky and scary is that this kind of stuff has happened as well.
Hmm.
There's so much we don't know that's happened behind the walls of institutions. Some we do know, and yeah, so the real world's always scarier than the movies I always find. You know,
Institutions and cover-ups and things of that nature are just innately horrific, and that's always
absolutely,
terrifying.
yeah, and fundamentalism of all kinds. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
All right, that's all I've got for you. Is there anything else in
Oh,
particular you'd like to share?
no, no, just I just think it's a we've tried to create, and I think I'm really proud of the film. I'm really proud to have the movie on Shudder as well. They've it's I was 5 years ago I was really kind of starting to worry about what would happen to kind of indie horror and the movies that used to be the Midnight Madness films that are the kind of grungy ones that we all love, and to know that there's now a platform where they can pull all that together, and to be part of that quite early on, I'm really, really proud. So yeah, no, enjoy the film. We've made it sound, like I say, like it's an intellectual beast. It's just there if you want it, but it is also, like you say, a really fun ghost story as well. So yeah, have fun with it.
It is, yeah. Shudder is a wonderful home for it. I'm glad that that's where it landed, and I promise you guys, it's a lot of fun. It's a fun haunted house. If
Yeah,
you love '70s British horror with haunted house, this is your jam. I promise you, you're gonna
yeah,
love
no,
this.
exactly right. That's it.
All right, Chris, thank you so much. It
Nice
was nice
one.
to chat with you.
Nice chance, you
All right.
too, Angel. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye
Congratulations,
bye.
by the way.
All right,
Bye.
thank you. Bye bye. Bye.
Thank you to Christopher for joining us. Make sure you check out The Banishing on Shudder. But I'm a little bit behind. I'm catching up. But I really love Jessica Brown Findlay. I am a Downton Abbey nerd, so I was very excited to see her in this role, and she just nails it. And really, I grew up on a lot of 70s British horror, so it was kind of cool to have that vibe kind of like as the bedrock for this. If you're into that, you're gonna like this. The Banishing on Shudder. That's all I got, and I'll catch you on the next episode for some more spooky shit.